we are going to discuss about basically this is a subject that you've already read in your school in the name of, do you remember, civics? So here we are going to discuss about government, who will be in government. First question is why government, second is who is government, what does it do, okay, and are there any limits on its power. This is what we are going to discuss in essence. Now I'm going to start I divide it into different segments. The first part of polity will be introduction, in which I'm going to first talk about what is polity and what is constitution. Okay, because the subject name is polity, but we end up reading all the provisions of the constitution. However, these two terms are not the same. They cannot be used interchangeably. So you should clearly know what is polity, what is constitution. So we are going to discuss the meaning of these two terms as well as the relationship between polity and constitution. To put it simple, I am going to answer the question, why is your subject called polity? Why are we reading the constitution? Okay. Once we are done with this, in this I am also going to discuss about the types of constitutions. Alright, once we are done with this, the next that I am going to discuss is the framing of Indian Constitution. How did the Constitution of India come into existence? Who started writing it? How was it written? All this we are going to discuss in framing. I am going to first give you a timeline on framing of the Constitution, where I am going to discuss the date or year related and the event related to the framing of the Constitution. Then we have to discuss about Constituent Assembly, the body which was involved in framing the Constitution. So we are going to discuss about the Constituent Assembly. We are also going to discuss about the drafting committee, all committees of Constituent Assembly, most importantly the drafting committee. All this will come under framing of Indian Constitution. Once we are done with this, in introduction, the third part will be salient features of Indian Constitution. Now what do you mean by salient features? Basically, salient features means those features of the Constitution that will tell you how Indian Constitution is different from other constitutions. In simple words, how is our Constitution unique? How is it different from other constitutions? Uniqueness of Indian Constitution is because of salient features. This is very, very important because you come across a lot of concepts here. I am going to discuss about federal form of government, unitary form of government, we say parliamentary form of government, presidential form of government, independent judiciary, integrated judiciary. Avanni will come under salient features. The fourth topic will be constitutional amendments. This has been added specifically in Group 2 syllabus. Constitutional amendments, we are first going to discuss why amend the Constitution. Amend ante enti? Why change the Constitution? Making a change is formally called as amend. Why amend the Constitution? How do you amend the Constitution? How amend? The procedure of amendment, and there is something called as doctrine of basic structure. Doctrine of basic structure, and finally the most important amendments till date. Okay, important amendments till date. Aithe deentlo what am I going to discuss for group 4? For group 4 we will have only 3 and 4. 1 and 2 will not be there for group 4. It is not in the syllabus. This is directly mentioned. Salient features of Indian Constitution is directly mentioned. The procedure of amendment is also a salient feature because it is a blend of rigidity and flexibility. So we are going to discuss 3 and 4 directly for group 4. Once I am done with introduction, introduction is basically about how our constitution came into existence and what are the important features of our constitution. Now we have to discuss why constitution, meaning what is the purpose of the constitution. So this is going to be the second part of polity. In this I am going to basically discuss the philosophy. Philosophy is nothing but why do you need this constitution? How is the constitution going to make a difference in our lives? So philosophy of constitution. Philosophy law, we discuss primarily about the aims and objectives of the constitution. Simple ga cheppalante, constitution is written, but how is it going to help me as a woman? It will ensure that there is equality. I am treated at par with men. How will it help a SC or an ST? How will it help a minority? All that will come under philosophy of the constitution. This philosophy is declared in the preamble. Therefore, we have to first discuss preamble. This will be the first topic. Okay. Now, this philosophy is achieved through. Ante, this is the end. What do you want to do is preamble. How are you going to do it is this. Achieved through fundamental rights, directive principles of state policy and fundamental duties. This is the most important chapter in your syllabus. There won't be any exam where there won't be a question there won't be at least one question on fundamental rights. So this part is very lengthy. Fundamental rights itself will take a lot of time because we have to know every clause given under fundamental rights. We have to discuss all the cases related to fundamental rights. There will be nearly 60-65 cases on fundamental rights. Now this part is also there for Group 4 because this comes under salient features of Indian Constitution. First make a note of this. Historical background will come under framing of the Indian Constitution. We are going to refer to all the sources from where we have taken the Constitution. Government of India Act, 1990, 1935, vanni cheppali. Feel free to ask if you have any doubts. See, the very reason why we limit the strength in our institute is because you should have a free interaction with the faculty. So don't shy off from doubts. You can ask me anything you are not clear about. Now the third part of this is government. We have different types of governments in India. Levels of government. Governance also happens through different mechanisms. So all that would come under the part 3 that we are going to discuss under polity. Now what is this? Let's understand. This is nothing but the political system of India. Basically, when we talk about governments and governance in India, we should first start with the topmost level of government. What is the highest level of government in India? We call it as the central government in general parlance, but in constitution it is mentioned as union government. Union government lo you have executive. I'm sure in school you must have at least remembered reading all this. Executive, legislature. I'm going to tell you why executive, why legislature, why judiciary, all this in introduction, so don't worry. What is government also I'm going to define. And there is another office called CAG. Under executive you will have president followed by the vice president of India, then you will have prime minister and council of ministers. There is another office called Attorney General of India. All this will come under executive. Then what will come under legislature? Legislature will basically have a president and two houses. What are the two houses? Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. We basically call them as Council of States and House of People. And judiciary in the center will have only one court, which is the Supreme Court. Then the next level of government will be state government. Again, state government will have executive, legislature, judiciary. CAG will not be there in state government because we have only one CAG in the center. Now in the state executive, who all will come? You will, in comparison, it will be governor, then CM, and you don't have a deputy governor, CM and council of ministers, and then we call that post as advocate general. Okay. Legislature, we have a governor, but we do not have two houses compulsorily. We have state legislative assembly, whose members are called as MLAs. Okay. And you may have state legislative council is not compulsory. You may have, you may not have. Then in judiciary, you have a structure here. You first have high courts, followed by what you call as subordinate courts, district courts, and all those courts together are called as subordinate courts. This is the structure in state government. Now always remember, president and governor will be similar. Prime Minister and CM will be similar. The powers and functions of Attorney General and Advocate General will be same. So what we are going to do is, we are not going to study them as government, but we are going to study them like this. We are first going to discuss union and state executive. Once we discuss union and state executive, I'll first tell you about president, then I'll tell you about vice president, then we are going to discuss about governor, then I'm going to tell you about the powers and functions of president and governor, then we come to prime minister and chief minister, we come to attorney general and advocate general. It should always be studied in comparison, endukante 90% of the provisions will be same, 10% will be different. Okay, idain tarvata we have to discuss union and state legislature. Parliament is a very extensive topic. We have to discuss union and state legislature, followed by Indian judiciary, Supreme Court, High Court and subordinate courts. In Indian judiciary, we are also going to discuss a few important concepts like judicial activism, judicial review, all that will come under judiciary. Now after we finish this, the third level of government is important for group 4, because you had nearly 4 to 5 questions only on this, in which we have panchayats and municipalities. We should first discuss about the concepts related to this. There is a concept called democratic decentralization, grassroots democracy. Ivanni meaning deliyali first. Once we discuss that, we have to discuss the committees related to panchayats and municipalities. This is nothing but how did these governments evolve, evolution of local self-government in India. Then we have to discuss the provisions of part 9 and part 9A, ante provisions related to panchayats and municipalities in the constitution. When I explain the basics, I will also explain what is a part, what is an article, what is a schedule. So don't worry about that. Now this is panchayats and municipalities. After this, these are the 3 levels of government that we stopped writing. These are the 3 levels of government that we have in India. Apart from this, we have a separate setup of government in we have a separate set of governance in scheduled and tribal areas. Please remember, this topic will again overlap with society for you in your syllabus. This topic is very, very important. They'll ask you about the provisions of Schedule 5 and Schedule 6. Okay. For Group 4, we are only going to discuss these three. For Group 2, we have to discuss all this. For Group 4, inta depth avasram ledu. There will be certain terms that I am going to skip and certain articles that I am going to skip. But for Group 4, all these topics will be there. This will not be there. Am I clear with this? Make a note of this, please. Now we are going to discuss about the relationship between center and state. The next part of this will be, we call this as Indian Federalism. This is not mentioned in the syllabus of Group 4. Indian Federalism basically is nothing but how is the relation between center and states. We call it as center-state relations. So in this first part of this will be the various provisions of the Constitution. Provisions of Constitution, there are 4. One is called as legislative provisions or legislative powers. Then we talk about administrative powers, division of administrative powers, and the last would be financial powers. Apart from this, there is another topic that is called as interstate relations, which discusses about the relationship between states. Interstate relations. This will be the constitutional provisions related to center and state. Once we are done with this, we should discuss the various commissions constituted on center state, like the Sarkaria Commission. But we have to know the recommendations, a few of them. Then we have something called as Punchi Commission. Then we have Rajmannar Commission. All these commissions, reports, members when they were constituted, our details we discuss under center-state relations. Raipote, there are again a set of bodies called constitutional bodies, which play a very important role in Indian political system. So this part again will be for Group 4. In constitutional bodies, we have already covered CAG under Union Government. CAG gaakunda emuntayante Public Service Commission, followed by Election Commission of India. Then I am sure you must have heard of National Commission for and a National Commission for BC. Then there is another post called Special Officer for Linguistic Minorities. Now, we are not going to study only about these offices. We are also going to study the related provisions to this. Ante, for this, we have to study part 14 of the Constitution. Ante, chapter 14 is related to Public Service Commission. Election Commission is very, very important because there is one full unit in Group 2 on Election Commission. We have to read not just this, the provisions of part 15, but we also have to read about election laws in India. This is kottaga topic, election laws, which is the representation of People's Act. Then we have to discuss free and fair elections. What do you mean by free elections? What do you mean by fair elections? Then we have to discuss about the electoral reforms in India. All this will be a part of Election Commission of India. Then here we have to discuss provisions related to part 16. Part 16 is very, very important because out of the last five amendments, 3 amendments took place in part 16. And part 16 was amended 3 times out of the last 5 amendments, and it is also related to reservation, so it is very, very important. This will be part 17, also known as official languages, became controversial after the national education policy. So this part will also be there for group 4, as I said. Constitutional bodies tarvata, the next thing that we have to discuss is statutory bodies. A few statutory bodies are mentioned in your syllabus. For this you should basically know under which law they are constituted, who appoints, how many members, what are their powers and functions, Lokpal and CVC. These are mentioned in your syllabus. This is about the next part. Please make a note of this now. Here we end the syllabus for group 4, but group 2 you have another area added, which is national integration issues, and where they have also mentioned internal security. So I'll just tell you what to read for that, what we are going to discuss for that. National integration issues. Basically, what are the different challenges that India faces with respect to unity and integrity of India? For example, we talk about a challenge called communalism. Okay. Likewise, there is another challenge called regionalism. I don't know if you have heard of Khalistan or Dravida Nadu any time. There were secessionist movements. They go against the unity and integrity of the India. Then there is another issue that we call as casteism. All this is already there in society. So we are not going to discuss this part. Here we have to discuss, they have specifically mentioned insurgency. When we talk about insurgency, we have to we talk about people from outside coming into India and causing a problem of internal security. So here we have to talk about border related problems in India. Because our borders are not safe, people are able to enter into the country and create problems. So border related problems and measures initiated. For example, do you know that India and Bangladesh have signed a treaty with respect to the borders? There is something called as border hut, which is being implemented on the borders of India and Bangladesh. Border hut is nothing but markets for people who are living in border areas in order to ensure that they are economically independent, so that they don't take up to extremist activities for the want of money. Atlantivanni we discuss in this. Then there is a topic mentioned, internal security. Insurgency is a threat to internal security. Here we have to first discuss certain concepts related to internal security, beginning with what do you mean by internal security. Then we talk about state actors, non-state actors. We talk about terrorism. Terrorism is a threat to internal security. Maoism, extremism, ivanniti meanings teliyali, that is concepts. Then we have to discuss about the various agencies that work to maintain internal security in India. Like, I'm sure you must have heard of IB. Yes, you must have heard of RAW. Then you must have heard of paramilitary forces. Can you name a few paramilitary forces in India? Did you hear about CRPF, ITBP? All these things will come under agencies, paramilitary forces. Then there are a few laws, basics of these laws, like Money Laundering Act, Maintenance of Internal Security Act, National Security Act. Basic details of these laws is what is required. Problem entante, in your syllabus they just mentioned internal security and left it. Unfortunately, this is a 50-mark area in civil services. And in civil services, all these things are a part of internal security. So what I'm going to do here is, since it is not descriptive and it is objective, I'm only going to cover that part which can be asked as questions in MCQs. Okay, not everything can be asked as questions. So that part only we are going to cover with respect to internal security. This is the syllabus for polity. Please make a note now. Now coming to references, I would not recommend any book for formation. My notes will be more than enough. By the end of it, you are going to write nearly 200 plus pages of notes and you will get a printed material. For polity, for group 2, you can buy Lakshmikant, kan adi kuda avasram ledu because everything will be covered in the class. But I would ask you to refer one book, that is NCERT class 11 textbook okatuntundi, Indian Constitution at Work. Adokka book matram konukondi because that gives a basic idea. Group 4 kaithe edi avasram ledu. Whatever is being given in class will be more than enough. And for everything information, you will have nearly 10 tests. Topics aipangane, I'll tell you where I'm going to conduct a test. For polity, you will have nearly 14 tests. So wherever we finish a topic, whenever we finish, I immediately say that for this you are going to have a test, you have to prepare. I'm very particular about a few things. One is attendance. See, your seriousness towards the exam will be reflected in your attendance. Exam is going to be in July or August. Okay, there will be tough competition. Attending the classes is very important. See, from our point of view, meer fees kattindu ayipindi, job is done. Kani evarki nashtam class attend gaakapothe annadi meer aalochinchukovali. I'm very particular about the attendance. I'm very particular about the exams. I don't like people not writing exams. Nenu prepare gaale, naaku telvadu, nenu intiki poi rasta, ivanni undavu. You have to write it here because we give a OMR sheet. We want you to use an OMR sheet for every exam. The reason why we say that you have to use an OMR sheet is, I don't know how many of you have the experience of writing in an OMR sheet. People usually make mistakes in bubbling OMR sheet and they lose marks. This is very, very important. You will get accustomed to using an OMR sheet when you write exams. And the third thing is, you will also know whether you are able to relate to what is being taught, whether you are able to recollect, whether you are able to follow the questions and answer. So please ensure that you are writing the tests. The third thing is, class notes is the most important source. Don't maintain it very shabbily. Write it neatly. My classes are going to be like this. I first explain, I give you time to write, then I dictate the notes. This is how we go on. So that I will entertain any doubt that you have, but I will not entertain any kind of indiscipline. Idi matram clear ga cheppina. Nenu explain chesetapudu maatladamo itlanti chesthe nenu oorukonu. మీకు ఏ డౌట్ ఉన్నా, ఎంత చిన్నదైనా ఎంత పెద్దదైనా, ప్లీజ్ ఫీల్ ఫ్రీ టు ఆస్క్ మీ. యు ఆర్ హియర్ టు క్లియర్ ఆల్ యువర్ డౌట్స్ అండ్ స్టడీ అండ్ ఐమ్ హియర్ టు ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్. మీకు ఏది అర్థం కాకపోయినా, నాట్ జస్ట్ మీ, ఎవ్రీ టీచర్ ఈజ్ లయబుల్ టు ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్. After the class also, if you are not able to ask in the class, just come out and talk to the respective faculty. They will answer the questions. Prati faculty, they stay for at least 5 to 10 minutes after the class to resolve your doubts. So you will not have any problem with respect to communicating with the faculty. And any point of time, if you feel that you are not able to study something or if you have a problem with your preparation, just inform the front office. You can talk to me. Am I clear with all this? I'll continue tomorrow. Society rape chaptanu. Your timings will also be informed in the front office for tomorrow. Okay?